You're listening to iCannabisRadio.com.
All right, we are back on this Thursday, opening day, by the way, for football, and we're going to get into opening day in a minute. As always, I'm David Madalena. Miss Samantha Walsh is not going to be joining us this evening. She was not able to make it in today due to prior engagements. And our expected guest, Scott from Rare Dankness, also was not able to make it due to maybe double booking himself. I'm not quite sure, but they are on their way to Seattle for the Cup out there. So we are looking to do our Jenny Cush tribute show next week, and we are working hard to get Scott on for next week so that we can go over that. But who we do have joining us in the studio today is Mr. Matt Brown.
Hi.
From my420tours.com. How are you today, Matt?
I am fantastic today. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Now, before we do go in, I do have to talk a little bit about the Jenny Cush Memorial that we attended last night, or I attended, and Sam and Chris here in the studio both attended as well. First of all, we were going to do a Jenny Cush tribute show with Scott from Rare Dankness, because Rare Dankness is going to be developing a Jenny Cush strain. Now, they did want to tell us that they're going to have more information next week, so maybe it is better that we are waiting till next week, because there's been so many developments, so much activity since the tragic news from late Friday night of last week. But everybody here at the Hemp Connoisseur, my staff at the radio here, we've all been pretty much devastated by this news. I, of course, knew Jenny myself personally through iCannabis Radio, not as well as many of the hundreds of people that showed up at her memorial at Hoodlam last night. And I just know that it moved me tremendously to lose a bright light such as Jenny Cush from the world. You know, every time our paths crossed and we got to hang out for a little while, there was never a moment where I wasn't smiling, because she's such an open, authentic person. And those are the words that were being used that I'm stealing from some of her closest friends last night, because they were the words that, you know, she impressed me with in such a short period of time.
Yeah, I don't feel that she's gone. I see when I'm talking to people, I feel Jenny. You know, she's here. You know, her spirit, her aura, it's still here.
Right.
I'm
Well,
wearing her shirt,
you know, and it's funny because Chris mentioned that today too, or maybe it was you, Sam, because when I got here, I found out about 10 minutes before I walked in the studio that Scott was not going to be able to make it, and Samantha was going to be joining us as well. And I'm like, oh crap, we just told everybody and sent out that we're going to have this, and of course I feel really bad about that, because we like to keep our word here. And you know, sometimes things are out of our control, obviously. And I had asked Matt. Earlier this week, I sent him an email saying, hey, Matt, we're going to be bumping you to next week. And I gave him a new date. And actually, luckily, I don't think Matt read the full email.
No, my stoner intuition kicked in, and I could just sense today that something was going to happen.
And like 10 minutes after finding out that Scott wasn't going to make it, I get a text from Matt saying, hey, man, I didn't forget about it. I'm on my way in. And I was like, okay, cool. And then, you know, was it you, Sam, who said that? Well, Jenny just provided that. You know,
No, I didn't say
it was
that.
you, Chris? No, it was Tim. Tim was in the studio early, and he's like, oh, that's Jenny providing for you guys. So, you know, taking care of iCannabis, basically.
Yeah.
So just much love out there for everybody who was in attendance last night. I mean, and,
so many
you know,
people.
Yeah.
I think over 300, you know. I mean,
Well, one of the
back, it's just a wave of people.
And one of the things I would say about the memorial and the impression that I had from that is how impactful one person can be just by spreading love.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jenny did that.
And she did that. And she did that, absolutely. You know, and
She's so unique.
yeah, my only regret is the fact that I wasn't spending more time with Jenny. I really wish I had.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew her for a year from producing the show, and she was awesome. I mean, just there's no one like her, you know.
Yeah.
But looking on the bright side, I feel like she's a type of Jack Herrer type figure.
I actually feel that way too. I was thinking about that, and you know, we are going to be doing a tribute in the October issue for Jenny Cush.
Great.
And you know, it was interesting because we were like talking about the tribute before I even went to the memorial, and then after I went to the memorial, I was like, oh God, this has to be bigger, because you know it is bigger than just a friend and somebody working with, and you know. That is passed on that we're going to miss. This is somebody who was like really a big part of the movement.
huge.
And it was amazing to see how many different people from all around the industry, from just friends or activists were there in attendance. And I don't know, it was just incredibly moving to see.
It was. It definitely moved me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was great to see all that strength for Jeremy and it's just the community is so solid.
Yeah,
we all love each other really.
But, here's the interesting thing, and I think it's another thing that says a lot about who Jenny is, because everyone, Georgia, who spoke very eloquently at the beginning and kind of emceed the, I don't know what the right word is for that in a memorial. Hosted, thank you, the event. And, and she said the rule is that, we're going to laugh until we cry, when, and those are the types of tears we're going to have. And it is like a testament to Jenny that people said, okay, how would Jenny want her memorial to be? And that's kind of how it was last night. I had to go and I really didn't want to. I had to. It was just getting late, And I wanted to stay and talk to like a lot more people and hear their stories about Jenny, because I feel like I missed out.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So Jenny, we love you, and you're here with us in the studio is how we like to think. Yeah. Just like you're there with everybody you've impacted at all times. Yeah. So we do have to go on to the news. So those of you who were under the impression we were going to be doing a Jenny tribute show today, we're going to do this next week because we wanted to have the guests on to talk about it and help raise money. But those of you who are interested in donating to the fundraiser to raise money for Jenny's kids, she did leave 4 kids behind that she loved very much. And we want to be able to, the fundraiser is to help pay for their schooling so they can go to college. All 4 kids going to college. It's a lot of money. So there's a fundraising effort going on where you can Pink Houses is one of the dispensaries, as well as River Rock Wellness, where you can donate in cash to Jenny. I know there's more information, I think, on fundraiser.com.
Yeah, I put it up on iCannabis.
Yeah, the easiest way would probably be just going to Jenny Cush's Facebook page, and there would be links right there to how to donate money. Mm-hmm. But already in just a few short days, they've raised, what was it, Chris? $16,000, something like that?
7,000 on the website, but then I'm pretty sure 7,000 at that event at the Hood Lab.
No, I heard 5-something thousand at the Hood Lab. I heard in total there's like 3 areas where you're getting paid. My understanding it was somebody on the phone with me earlier who said that was around $16,000 to $17,000 already raised between all 3 areas, and they're all going to the same thing, and they're all going to these kids. They're giving a separate trust fund for each kid to take care of them, because honestly, that's probably what Jenny's first priority would have been. I would imagine. Is okay, well, if there's going to be a fundraiser or some money being raised in your name, where would it go? And it would go to her kids first. So I think it's great that that's happening, and we're going to try to support that as much as we can at THC Magazine as well. Now, we have to try to go into the news. I know it's hard to do after talking about this, but we are going to go to the news. And one of the things that's interesting, and Matt, I'm sorry, I know you've been just sitting on the sidelines right now, but I want to first introduce who you are. And we met a long time ago. Actually, Matt, it was
back in the day. You
could say back in the day.
I think, back when this was all getting going.
2009, yeah. Well, that was really my beginnings of being in this industry.
It was the beginning of the industry. I mean, before July 20th, 2009, there was not a cannabis industry.
Yeah, that was an interesting time.
That was used. It was new.
Yeah, it was an interesting time because it was one of those things like, hey, do you want to be in this industry? What do you want to do? Oh, if it doesn't exist, make it up.
Exactly.
And actually, that's kind of what Jenny did, from my understanding, is she just moved over here and just jumped right in on activism side. I mean, it was right around that time frame as well, as my understanding.
The Moms for Marijuana chapter, which I knew about when I was 16.
Yeah.
I was like, Mom, you got to look at this, Moms for Marijuana.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah. It was lucky. Timing is a big thing.
And what we saw was in just this unprecedented move. Sociologists will someday study this. You don't see this in modern times. Like, all of a sudden, for no apparent reason, everybody in this state just started talking about pot, right? And only about 10%.
It had already been legal for a few years. That's the thing.
Yeah, this was not new. We didn't just suddenly, pass it. But we got rid of Bush. That seemed to be the biggest thing that happened. We had Obama. I mean, January 21st, there were people opening up. The day after the inauguration.
Yeah.
A couple here and there, but it still wasn't really clear.
Right.
And it was that summer the Department of Health had put off rules. They were voting to limit all caregivers to 5 patients. And so this sounds like ancient history to us now.
Yeah.
This is so far. But, July 20th, 2009, they voted, and over 1,000 people. This was really the first time in recent marijuana Colorado history that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people showed up and testified just all at once.
Yeah.
And it completely overwhelmed the Department of Health. I think all 1,000 of us who were there. I think I voted number 689, if I remember correctly.
You were?
I was there, yeah. That was the day I began my career as a cannabis consultant, was talking to people at that meeting. And we waited and waited and waited, and real late at night they voted. We all thought that it was a predetermined decision. Why would they go through all this hoopla of coming up with the rules and trying to do it if they weren't just going to rubber stamp this? And they voted overwhelmingly against the rules. And it was like a gunshot went off. I always liken it to the story of how Oklahoma was settled, which is this amazing American story we forget about, where they drew, they had a ribbon around the state. And on a certain day at a certain time, they fired a gun and said, go. And you would go stake out your land. And the further you ran and the faster you went, you got whatever you want. That's what happened here July 20th, 2009. And what happened was you had one group of people, and this is certainly where my involvement was, who were mom and pop, everyday people, a lot of second chancers, people who had a construction company. I mean, you got to remember 2009. Can we swear? It was a pretty
this is
it was a
internet.
pretty
We don't care.
shitty year in the economy,
Sure.
right? And it had been pretty shitty for a couple years. So, people who had savings going into that last recession, by the summer of 2009, they were hurting real bad. And all of a sudden, we had, within a year, $1 billion of hard money invested, and it was people who wanted to go take a little bit of risk. This was not Subway franchisees walking in the front door. People who had comfortable income elsewhere weren't here. It was the ones who said, I want to do the American dream. I want to come up with my idea of what a future where marijuana can be sold and talked about and used much more openly exists. And so you had people just create stores. You had people who copied Whole Foods, and you had people who copied that squirrely little grocery store in the middle of the mountains that has 4 things on the shelf. And then you also had around it this even larger group of people who just took that freedom and openness and just everything that was happening in their own direction, whether it was Moms for Marijuana type things, chapters, or advocacy that was quasi-commercial. People who would come up with an edibles company as a way of smiling and helping people, or taking cookies to the cannabis ward, that kind of thing. Or, sorry, cookies to the cancer ward. Cannabis ward, that would be a good future.
Would be.
And so since then, here we are. Colorado is the apex in the world of what the future of legalized marijuana looks like.
Well, and I think even still, we had even bigger opportunity because we were the first. And what's going to happen is, in my opinion, and we're looking at doing this as well, is as legal marijuana, be it medical or recreational, is expanded outwards into other states, there's going to be that room for other dispensary owners and people to come in. But I think us in Colorado, we've already got this model that we could actually be the entrepreneurs in those states as well. Like you said, there's nothing rocket science, I'm not a rocket scientist when it came to the Hemp Connoisseur magazine. I didn't reinvent invent a wheel. I just said, let me look at what works as far as a publication that can be applied in a different way to the marijuana industry, dining out, we worked with them to develop at the beginning. But it was like, well, that doesn't exist yet. But and you're right. There were people it was great to say, they copied this Whole Foods model, because you could say, well, I can take anything existing and all I do is this one little thing, add cannabis, and it's my own thing.
And what we saw there in that time was not only did all the business people do it, but my role from November 1st is when I went full time through the end of May. I was full time as the executive director of Coloradans for Medical Marijuana Regulation. My job was to represent, quote unquote, the industry. And again, I was really the first one saying that over and over again, to speak with the legislature, to sit down. And what we did was honestly and very literally not like, haha, literally, but like actually got a blank piece of paper and said, if we are going to create regulations for the supply chain of medical marijuana, what does that look like? And since we're all lazy, and we joked about that, how do we copy rules and regulations we already have in every other industry we can imagine that makes sense?
Well, yeah.
And, this isn't high school. You're not going to get in trouble for plagiarizing rules. This is a good thing.
No, it's a good thing. It is.
And what we got then was a system that was comprehensive from day one. So you mentioned earlier, Eric Holder's memo and the news last week. That was really the final confirmation from the federal government in a way, or the most recent certainly. That
it is. Yeah, it's. I wouldn't say it's the final.
Not
I wouldn't
final,
say it's
certainly.
no.
Well, change, you know what I mean?
Because I have my own opinions on the Cole memo, and maybe this is a perfect time actually that we have to go to break,
Yeah.
and then we'll come back and we can talk. Oh yeah, we gotta go into the Cole
Clear and
memo.
unambiguous. Let's
Yeah. Okay.
Blue Sage Microbes unveils the ultimate in superior soil, Ideal Soil, a 16-quart bag of the best growing soil ever engineered. Superior plant health and vitality is a direct result of the structure and chemistry of your soil. How good is your growing soil? Is your growing soil really balanced? How do you know? Well, Blue Sage Microbes has a newly designed growing soil that is the most advanced growing medium ever offered for cannabis cultivation. This is the only brand in the marketplace that provides growers with an ideal soil structure designed to work specifically with their cultivation systems. You will have your best grow results ever. Call now for a special introductory offer, 888-959-8551, or log on to bluesagemicrobes.com and experience a new level in growing. That's 888-959-8551.
The Law Office of Edson Maton and Matz provides criminal defense, family law, medical marijuana defense, and advice about setting up and running a medical marijuana center, optional premises cultivation operation, and infused product manufacturing businesses throughout the state of Colorado. We're focused on providing high-quality service and customer satisfaction. We will do everything we can to meet your expectations. WarrenEdson.com. Edson Maton and Matz in Denver, 303-831-8188, and in Aspen, 970-948-7183. WarrenEdson.com.
The National Cannabis Industry Association would like to thank its members who represent the leading professional businesses in America's emerging legal cannabis market. NCIA is the only organization that has unified legitimate cannabis business across the nation to fight for real reform in Washington, D.C. For more information or to make your business a member, visit us online at thecannabisindustry.org.
I'm sure. All right, we're back with Matt Brown from my420tours.com. And we're going to get into 420 Tours. It's kind of funny. My Boston accent comes out when I say that, by the way. I don't know why. It's like 420. But we're going to get into
it.
I'm so wicked retarded. We're going to get into my 420 Tours, but it's interesting because we've been kind of talking about history of how, when we both met in this industry.
And our tours, I think, more than anything, show off the history. So it's not unrelated.
Well, it's not, and I think what it is it's showing a natural progressive growth because of the legalization and now the legalization of adult use. And I've been saying this as soon as that happened. I was like, Canada tourism is going to be huge in Colorado. Absolutely huge, because you look at everybody from the United States that went to Amsterdam, and I would say
I've got numbers for you if you'd like. Can we
let's
start
talk.
with some
Well,
math? I have real, honest to God math.
And we kind of just go stream of conscious in this show, but I do want to get back to debating a little bit about the Cole memo. But you're right. Let's talk numbers since that's what we're on right now. So numbers in Amsterdam tourism from the United States. Is that what you have?
Colorado.
Okay, Colorado.
I can tell you based on. So every year, the State Department of Tourism puts out this huge report. It's a couple hundred pages long, ridiculously in-depth on tourism in the state of Colorado. It's one of the largest industries in the state. And so when you break down the numbers of how many people come here, in 2009, we had about 29 million visits. When you slice that for the number of adults, the number of children on average, what you get is right around 21 million adults visited Colorado each year. Some of those are somebody from Grand Junction who takes a weekend trip to Denver. And, it's all over. But so we've got 21 million. Assuming the national average that about 1 in 10 adults uses marijuana. Right there we have 2.1 million adult visitors before we legalized pot who are already coming on vacation.
And that's just the national average, which is going to be skewed.
I see that as our baseline.
Well, yeah.
We start with a minimum of 2 million people last year who were already coming here without any ability to shop in the store, without any ability to, smoke pot legally or possess or in anything along those lines that was fundamentally different than smoking pot illegally in another state.
Right.
So certainly there's a huge opportunity.
Right.
I also think, there'll be kind of that initial bump of the party people, the people who just want to come experience it and just have a great weekend and sort of party in Denver.
I think there's going to be that. Yes.
Where I see the real opportunity, though, in what happened, particularly in regards to tourism, is I think of myself. I have Crohn's disease. That's why I really got into the medical marijuana industry as a business person and a patient and advocate, et cetera, is I live with that. And for me, a gram of cannabis spread throughout the day is the difference between 1 or a dozen bathroom breaks. It's very simple math.
Right.
When I travel, not only the stress of normal travel or traveling with a partner, girlfriend, when I go certain places, knowing whether or not I will have access to marijuana, and not just, high school, I need some weed, but that I have what I have here in Colorado, which is a system of distribution where I can get the strains that work for me, that I'm clear-headed and functional and
it's not just buying some black market crap. I would never buy black market again. I would almost rather go without for a short time.
The biggest irony for me, a couple years ago, we went to Spain. We landed in Ibiza. Ibiza has a reputation for not being terribly difficult to find drugs.
Sure.
First 2 days I was there, I couldn't find weed, and I just had a huge Crohn's attack. And the first 2 days that we were there was miserable. So I think the numbers there, whether it's millions or tens of millions, there are people all across the country who do this anyway, who right now don't travel because they know that when they leave home and when they leave that careful, very private system that they have, that things will go awry. So I think we will start attracting people coming from medical type tourism, or just coming because this allows them that quality of life. It just allows them to function.
Or maybe there's just a family member that lives in Colorado, and now somebody who's sick is like, hey, I'm going to come out and visit once in a while so I can get my medication and test it out, see how it feels if I'm sick.
And on our tourism front, one of the things that I'm most excited to do is to put together groups like that where I could say, we'll bring in Crohn's patients. From intestinal disorder patients from around the country, particularly people who either live in medical marijuana states that don't have dispensaries, or they're coming or something.
My cousin lives in New Jersey. She has Crohn's disease.
Perfect case.
Yeah.
And anybody who has Crohn's, if you know them, you know the stories. It's not a fun one. And my dad had it. I was raised my entire life watching my dad, where everything we did as a family had that little asterisk of had to stop for more bathroom break. Just something.
No. I worked with a barback who had that issue, and it was like if he disappeared, we're like, hey, where did, I'm not going to say his name, go? And then we're like, oh, that's where he's at right now. And, and it was just.
And it's embarrassing when you have to run at work like that.
It sucks.
It's even worse when you start having days that you're taking off work sick just because you can't leave your house.
Yeah, sure.
So certainly I think, Colorado now stands to gain from all of that. And the more that I think we as a state are accepting of the fact that, it's a good thing. As long as we can get, dissuade ourselves of this Cheech and Chong idea that somehow pot tourism is nebulous and therefore it's bad.
Well, no.
The more we can show that this is about attracting all of the right people to Colorado for all of the right reasons, then we all benefit.
Well, and I love the fact that Hickenlooper is not my favorite politician in the world, as a lot of people know who listen to me, said that he didn't want Colorado to be known for marijuana. He's like, it's known for a lot of things, but marijuana shouldn't be one of them. And I was like, you don't get it. You don't get it. It is something you should be proud to be known for. I mean, seeing that you're proud to be known for us being a microbrew state, and, in the past week, we've already know what the evil of alcohol can do.
Let me push back on you, because I agree with everything you just said. I would also challenge, though, it is better for us to have a governor who says boneheaded, stupid things and opposes what is clear and in front of him. If we had a governor who just said, woohoo, I love weed, that would be a non-story. But when he says Cheetos and Fritos and just stupid stoner joke type things and dumb things like, bold-faced, I don't want us to be known for marijuana, when at the same time he'll be announcing that the Spirits Microbrew festival is coming back next spring, or Great American Beer Festival for the how manyth year will be here in October. I'm
sure on the cannabis tourism, like the Colorado tourism, I should say, site. There's videos showing microbrews and everything. We should take a look at that actually. But I guarantee you, there's no cannabis.
There's an enormous set of B-roll. Like we have access through the. We have an account with the tourism office. We are a tourism provider.
Right.
They have whole video B-roll packages ready to go for news divisions that include all of their focus. It's actually one of the named marketing focuses, or whatever they call it, for the state for the year, is highlighting various forms of alcohol tourism, both breweries and, highlighting the fact in marketing messaging that we have most microbreweries per capita, or whatever the number is, and this new distillery movement, the micro distilleries. They're advocating money. If we actually were a tourism company that offered bus tours of microbrewers or micro distilleries, and we were going to be running ads in New Jersey to get people to come here, TV, print, whatever, we could apply to the state, my company, My 420 Tours, we could apply to get a 50% matching money grant from the state to basically have the state cover half of my marketing money to get people to come to my business in Colorado if I am a tourism partner.
But not for marijuana.
I can't say not for marijuana. I haven't applied. I don't know if anybody's applied.
Gotcha.
I have not applied because I've not been given any reason to believe we would be eligible.
Well,
Nor do I think we need it. I can also say that
in the next 4 weeks, we're going to have Matt Brown back to answer this question. Can you get a grant for marijuana tourism? I'm pushing the issue for him, so he has to go try it out now.
Apply to fail.
Apply to fail. No, I mean, hey, because you know what? That's a story. That is an actual story. Either way, it's a story. If they accept you, that's a story. If they fail you, that's a story. Because it's like, hey, why are you giving this to alcohol?
And I can agree with you. I will also say we do have a what I consider good relationship with the state tourism office. Right. We talk to them, particularly before World Cannabis Week, and knowing, I spent the month of April, from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed, 6 to 7 days a week, just doing media. There was all this interest of like, what does pot tourism look like in Colorado? From all over the world, 5 continents, we had people here. Where was we going?
What's that?
I totally spaced out.
You
I got on a roll.
You were on a roll, Matt.
State tourism office.
State tourism office.
We talk to them, and we talk privately. And, when you talk to them, they'll say, listen, we get it. People are going to come here. When we can explain ourselves, and like when I sit down with City Councilman Charlie Brown, who also is not ashamed at all to make boneheaded statements about marijuana to anybody who will listen. But I can also sit down and have an adult conversation with him, just like we could at tourism. Sure. And they'll both say, we don't want the bad. What are you doing to help with bad? And when I say that I pick people up at the airport in a bus, and the entire time that they're here, that they're smoking pot, they're never going to be behind the wheel of a car, that alone was the number one biggest inroad that we had with local government. And it's a legitimate concern. I won't take a position either way on the DUI bill or anything like that. I can just say, if the powers that be are worried about transportation, and I can help people have a better time by providing it, that's a win-win. Well, and privately they would say, listen, until the state comes out with rules, until the state comes with their official role, the tourism office is a department of the state, they can't go making essentially state policy is how they feel, which if they start to endorse it on the tourism front, it just treads down that road. And again, this is before the rules were finalized, before retail stores are open. Maybe next year will be different. It's
amazing, though, because it feels to me like sometimes the government here, because of the legalized marijuana, is kind of having their cake and eating it, too, because they're like, okay, go out and promote our state, but you're not going to get any money for it. But, keep doing that. On the
flip side, I'll say, though, you know what? If we're a whitewater rafting company in Clear Creek, there's a limited number of people from around the country that I'm going to be able to get to come to my business.
True.
But just by changing the law, I don't need their grant money.
Right.
I don't need to spend nearly as much money per capita. There are millions of people from around the world desperate to go somewhere for vacation, and really, it's a coming out of the closet experience. It's a couple days where everything else about life is exactly the same. It's not like a time machine, but there's this tangible feeling for them that they're in a place where the joint in their pocket will not risk them going to jail. And that's, that's the biggest marketing grant I need from the state. Thank you.
We have to go on a break,
yes.
But when we get back, I want to kind of ask you, so if I'm on a 420 tour, what is that going to look like?
Absolutely.
So
there's your teaser.
I know, that's my teaser. We'll be back in just a moment.
Are you a runner? Are you a runner who supports marijuana legalization? Run on Grass is a group of athletes actively seeking to change our marijuana laws. We speak the truth about cannabis, bringing the message through our feet to new ears. Check out runongrass.com to find out more about us, our events, and how to join up or how to sponsor a runner. If you're in the Denver area, please join us for runs or start a group in your area. Running not your thing? Any sport can do it. On Grass. Runongrass.com. Let's face it, rules and regulations are complicated, especially in the field of medical marijuana. Let Medical Marijuana 101 help you get through the compliance process. We can also explain to you your employment requirements, your employees, and your business. But our work doesn't stop there. Our experience in cultivation ranges from the design of grow rooms to the diagnosis and resolution of grow problems. Visit us at www.medicalmarijuana101.com or call 303-388-7706. That's 303-388-7706.
I'm Gary Johnson, and you're listening to iCannabis Radio, and I want to say, talk it up, Colorado.
All right, we're back with Matt Brown from my420tours.com. And it's hard to say that you're just from my420tours.com, Matt, because of everything you've done.
Right, I'm just Matt Brown.
You're Matt Brown.
Call me Matt Brown.
You know, those of you who know Matt Brown, that's all you need to hear.
I'm not the Ultimate Fighter Matt Brown, as you can probably see, and
No?
I am not the Rhode Island state politician Matt Brown.
Right.
But I'll take the marijuana Matt Brown.
Marijuana Matt Brown. That has a better ring anyway.
It does. Alliteration.
It does.
People
I love alliteration. Double MB. Ooh, I like that. MMB for MMC. Ooh, or
That's a lot of
MMJ.
acronyms.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It could flow nicely.
It could flow. We got to figure that
We'll
one
rehearse
out.
my
We'll get
nickname
that.
later.
Yes, but during the
Yes.
break, I posed a question that I want to hear about. So if let's just say I'm somebody who always lived in the black market, you know, smoking weed. Now I'm like, okay, I'm coming to Colorado. I check out this site, my420tours.com. What is it going to look like?
It
As far as a tour, I should
certainly.
say.
So we will have prepackaged tours. The same way as, you know, when you go on vacation to Jamaica, you can say, you know what, I want to take the jungle tour. Or I want to go stay at an all-inclusive resort and turn my brain off for a week and just go enjoy whatever it is they give me. Same idea. We will have prepackaged tours, particularly for the public. If you look at the itinerary that we had in April, it's a very good standard example. People came in on Wednesday, and we had a private 420 happy hour party. We do that every day at 420. Closed to the public, totally legal. Pick everybody up at the airport when they arrive. We have group hotels, and every hotel understands why we're there. We have smoking rooms. We follow the law. Private 420 happy hour, usually the first day is not too much. On the Thursday, we had a grow tour and a hash making lab. So both were kind of half days with a big lunch in the middle. We actually had Ed Rosenthal come and teach that class for us, and we have a great relationship with him. I think he'll be doing a number of events with us.
Very cool.
And other people. I mean, we want to work with anybody who wants to be a service provider. This is not about me. You know, I think what people in our industry call the Walmart types. This isn't about me saying I invented the idea of smoking on pot and I will provide every service. I want to find people who want to offer something to tourists and find a way to build a package. So we had, you know, a great grow tour, and really for the people out of the state, just walking around seeing the plants. For a third of the people, that was the highlight of their week. And they got to come back and learn how to make hash and dabs and stuff.
Is that going to be problematic, actually, for legal-wise when it comes to, like, badging? Because some dispensaries would be nervous, I would think, about that. Like, can I, you know, these people aren't badged. How can they come in for a tour?
Exactly. And I, based on my unique experience, I actually had the foresight back when we were writing the rules. We wrote a little bit into House Bill 1284, and it was Matt Cook and I talking, that there needed to be a way for an approved visit. And at the time we were talking, you know, other state regulators. If state regulators in Massachusetts wanted to come see how it should look, we needed a process. And we just sort of left open the idea that there might be a tour. And I never planned on, you know, this wasn't like me deviously scheming. It just worked out. And when we launched, that was one of the first questions that came up. And I know this answer. So, yes, under state law currently, everybody who goes in has to have a visitor badge. We sign in. When you get there, you sign out. This is not about bringing people on a tour and showing them how to skirt the rules. So a lot of what these people are looking for is us highlighting everything about the regulatory system here in Colorado that makes this okay. You know, that's really an important part of what, you know, we found after talking to the people. We had 120 people come, give us an amazing focus group over 420 weekend. And, you know, talking to them, that was what we learned was they were so eager to follow the rules that they were, oh, you know, does my badge have to be up here on my collar? Can it be down here? Like, where can I walk? Is it okay to use this? And they loved that. I mean, seeing that was like going to Fort Knox.
No, it is
You know,
kind of
when
like
you-
going
when
to
you
Fort
go
Knox to these
you
people.
see, like,
Absolutely.
that's how my government protects our gold.
Right,
Like, there's
right.
something about that. And
This is how legal marijuana is taken care of. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, I love that.
so there is a risk under the final proposed rules that would go into effect in January, both for medical and recreational marijuana. It would severely limit or restrict tours to the point that it might make larger tours unworkable. It would actually have a 5-to-1 visitor to employee ratio of the dispensary group or of the MMC. So I couldn't bring my 420 tour staff. I couldn't hire part-time staff that wasn't badged to help out. It would have to be badged employees, which, if you have 20 people at a time, isn't a problem. It would be much more difficult if we tried to do 120 people again, even spread throughout a day.
Well, 120 is a lot anyway,
It was
though.
definitely a lot.
Yeah.
It was 2 to 3 times more than we probably should have done the first
Sure.
time, but you learn. And what we found, until the retail stores start opening, it's a little bit more difficult of a pitch to, grow or to any licensee. That's where my partner JJ and I really had to rely on the fact that we've both been here since, we were both sitting at the Department of Health meeting in 2009.
Right.
Like, we have so many connections. We can talk to somebody and say, this is what we want to do. Here's how we're going to follow the rules. I'm not going to get you in trouble. And we're going to show off how good you are and how much you're following the rules by doing this. It's for the people there are some people who are never going to let me give a tour of their grow, and that's fine. Like, just tell me that and we'll both move on. Like,
Right.
There are others who are just, genuinely concerned and rightfully so. And so we talk. Now, come January, I think the message gets much clearer when we can take somebody then, just like you do exactly with wine country tours, where in the morning you're out with the master gardener touring the grapes. We can take people on a grow tour. We can have, a particular grow's master grower give Tierra Rojo. Could be, teaching a class in the morning or just answering questions. That's going to help boost the brand of that store. So I think it then becomes much easier to justify. But in the meantime, we've made do so far, and we'll get through to the end of the year.
It's kind of fun because I hear all these different things from what you're saying, and it's where I say, like, marijuana is like nothing else because you can encompass all of these different aspects from different industries. You're saying you're having a vineyard tour. Right. So it feels much more like a wine tour in a way than it would like a beer, distillery tour.
Right. And it's not a meth lab tour.
It's not a meth lab tour.
And it does all of us good, I think. And that's part of what we say when we talk to people is, it only helps the industry to be able to be more transparent and not fear repercussions. The Chris Barkowitz legacy is incredibly tangible. It's probably the one memory of 2009 that is still more tangible among more people in Colorado than anything else. And that lingers. And I've actually, all the media that I talk to, and they ask to bring cameras into grows, it's usually much more difficult for me to get even a foreign reporter with a camera in than it is to get 120 people in on a tour, ironically. I tell all of them, call 9 News. Tell them that their irresponsible reporting 4 years ago is still prohibiting you from being able to do a legitimately good story today. And that's tangible. So that remains.
Right.
Back to the schedule. What you see? Grow tour. Certainly, we want to show that off.
Sure.
There's a lot of interest in dabs and just hash oil and all this, especially people who don't live in someplace like Colorado. There's no access to hash oils.
Well, what would be nice is to educate people on how to dab before they actually do it.
Exactly. One of the lessons we learned is at the very first night at our happy hour, we had a guy take a dab that should not have taken a dab, and he was just zombied. You know how it looks.
Oh, yeah.
And, we chuckled. My partner put him in the car, drove him back to his hotel, and it was way better than dealing with somebody super drunk. He wasn't swinging at anybody. He wasn't vomiting. He was just sitting peacefully in the chair, staring blankly.
Kind of freaking out probably on the inside a little bit.
And he was a little older, too. I think he was
Yeah.
probably pushing 50.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So Thursday we did that. Friday, we had a cooking class. Cooking class, we had sort of an open time in the afternoon. Concerts Friday night. That was actually the 420 Eve Flowbots concert. Where
You went to the
everybody got a
Flowbots
pipe
concert, right.
And so, we took the whole bus. Pulled up with a limo bus right at the door, and that was fun.
Well, next time it'll be our party.
Saturday we had tours going up to Red Rocks, certainly the rally all day. So things along those lines. A lot of it too will be people calling us and saying, "Here's what I want. I have 20 of my friends, from the alumni group, graduated college together 10 years ago. We want to do a ski trip. Here's what we would like to do. We'd like to have a chef come in, and we want to rent a mansion. We want to have a chef come in and teach us how to cook, because the last any of us 30-somethings know is, those brownies we had in college that knocked our face off. So they're looking for a chef to cook a real nice meal and some cannabis, real nice food. They're looking for any number of things. I always say there's a million reasons to visit Colorado. All of them are better with marijuana. And
I agree.
So it's not about coming up with the one magic package that will attract people here, but really just being, that connection. So if you're coming in from out of state, we want to have something for you to connect with really what's awesome about Colorado. Because otherwise, starting next year, you'll have people who will land at the airport and will stop at the store just like it's a 7-Eleven and head up to the mountains and kind of miss out on all the really cool things that we've done here in 4 years and just, in Colorado in general. And so this is a chance, I think, for us to show off as a state and to help build a little bit more of the business.
No, I love it, and I always anticipated something like this happening. We talked about we're trying to get our we're going to be working to get at the magazine in all the hotels for that very reason, to be providing an outlet, an outlet of news and regular information for cannabis tourism. It's going to happen. It's just it's inevitable. People come, they want to know where to dine. They go to a dining out magazine, or because it's going to be in their hotel. It's very convenient.
It's not evil to make money.
It's not. No,
as long as you're not being evil while you do it.
And I think that's the thing is after being a bartender for 20 plus years, I'm just like, wow, man, I've been giving out poison on a regular basis. And it's just the nature of the job, really, but it's that's what I'm doing. And, perfect example. I think, I forget who it was who just put out the news on this, but they just said, let's see a number of how many people have died from overdoses of cannabis. And of course, there's none.
It's the pandas rolling around.
The pandas rolling around. We don't think any
Huffington
pandas.
Post.
Yeah, it was Huffington Post. Hey, speaking of news, like I said, it was opening day today.
Yes.
You like how I just brought that
I
up?
did.
Yeah.
Excellent segue.
I know, yeah. Well, kind of forced. But opening day today. And, of course, Marijuana Policy Project and, Mason Tvert, the PR guru, who we did a 20 questions with this issue for September coming out next week.
He's a genuinely awesome dude.
A genuinely awesome dude. And I call him
since before any of us, genuinely awesome dude.
And
so
I call him,
Mason.
and like I said, he's a PR guru. He is.
He is, yeah.
He totally is.
Calling you don't like Hickenlooper, one of his coup de grace was calling Hickenlooper a drug dealer. Because, Mason learned, I think, earlier than all the marijuana advocates here in Colorado, to pick a simple message that was different and connected with people and then stick to it.
Yeah.
And he hasn't been out for 7 years, 8 years, 10 years, whatever, shouting everything on earth from, this will cure, this is the fountain of life and will cure every possible disease to, it'll make you happy and whatever. He has a smart message. And so today, to the actual point.
Well, to the actual point, the Broncos didn't do it, but Marijuana Policy Project,
yes.
it is opening day here in Denver.
Next to the stadium.
And it's literally right next to the stadium. There ain't nobody missing on their way to the stadium right now. Who we're going to see, it says, stop driving players to drink. A safer choice is now legal. And then in parentheses, it says here. And it's from marijuanapolicy.org. Look, this is a brilliant campaign, in my opinion. And what I love about what MPP is doing is they're not actually, they're going after people and, not going after them, but, they're getting this message out to the people out there. But what they're doing is they're doing it in defense of pro football players. And they're telling the NFL to get off of players' backs for marijuana usage. Come on, let's be honest. All right. I'm a big fan of cannabis, obviously. Everybody here is. But none of us is going to say it makes you a better, football player the day of a game or anything. It may make it better for you to relax, to get out of pain without using some more dangerous drugs. But I wouldn't say it's a performance enhancement. Chris is shrugging his shoulders.
It is not a performance enhancing drug in the sense of original intent of why we tested. You know,
Exactly.
we tested for stuff that's going to make little guys enormous.
Yes.
This is not testosterone.
That's what I mean.
This is not, you know, this is
Yeah.
this is
It's not a
as
steroid.
performance-
It's not making their muscles bigger than they could
Unless-
normally make it.
It's
Unless you throw Oreos on the field, they're not running faster to get the Oreos.
Well, you
Right.
could just imagine that you're running for
Chasing-
Oreos, I guess.
chasing
Same thing as them taking an energy drink, because energy drinks
gives you energy.
focus.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
You're right.
Energy drinks.
You're right. But they don't have an issue with that. I don't think they're saying no to Red Bull.
Well, and
in
the
NFL or
reality
anything
is,
like that.
you know, if you actually look today on the Google News feed, I think it's interesting. If you click whatever story comes up with the billboard, you know, for all the news sources, Google News got very confused today right before I came in. I was looking at this, where there were a couple of the billboard stories, and then there was a whole bunch on the giant concussion agreement, the $750 million, and
Yep.
then another $100 million today, I believe,
Yep.
for future research and current players and stuff. So that was a big part of it, and that they just came up with, they watered down once again the agreement with the Players Union on HGH testing. And so, you know, I think right now the problem is the NFL just doesn't want to think about marijuana. It's just, they would prefer to not have to pretend that it exists, right? Like,
Well, yeah, but
HGH is a real performance-enhancing drug. It's something that will biologically, increase your body mass. So, you know, it seems silly that they're having this long, drawn-out debate on HGH testing, and at the same time have THC standards that are 50 times higher than the Olympics.
Well, and here's the other thing. You know, the other side of the story, we have to go on a break. So we'll go on a break, but we got to come back, and I want to talk
talked too
more.
much, I'm sorry.
No. You know, don't ever apologize for talking on the radio. But I want to get back on the NFL thing and talk more about this campaign for marijuana policy project. So we'll be back in just a moment.
Call Cannocher at 1-800-420-5757 for all your insurance needs. Cannocher understands the risks you face each day, and we are there to protect your business and your investment. Since 2010, Cannocher has been serving the cannabis industry nationwide. Call Cannocher at 1-800-420-5757 or visit us on the web at cannocher.com to learn more about our insurance and risk management services. Proud member of the NCIA.
Independent Records and Videos has been your locally owned and operated choice for music, movies, and lifestyle accessories since 1978. Independent Records and Videos has 7 locations from Denver to Colorado Springs to Pueblo to serve your entertainment needs. Whether it's vinyl, CDs, DVDs, books, smoking accessories, or hundreds of other fun and fanciful items, Independent is ready and waiting to make your dreams come true. We are always buying, selling, and trading vinyl, CDs, books, and DVDs, so sell yours and buy ours. Independent Records and Videos, your entertainment headquarters. Check us out at beindependent.com or on Facebook.
Green Faith Ministry is for spiritual guidance, MMJ information, and networking combined with compassionate care on the way to enlightenment with all Green Faith sacraments. Green Faith provides charity assistance, including medical and food throughout the year. Contact them at greenfaithministry.com.
All right, we are back with Matt Brown from My 420 Tours, and we kind of been running the gamut today. And this is our last 15 minutes, but I do want to say one thought on this billboard. I was saying, they're making it look like they're targeting to make it safer for players, and you're saying, well, they're targeting everybody to stimulate the conversation about marijuana, and I absolutely agree with you on that. But I do love the idea of them saying, look, we're gonna say, go push the NFL to say, okay, marijuana is not a performance-enhancing drug. We shouldn't be like fining players for usage of marijuana, especially when they're already dealing with players for drunk driving incidents on a regular basis all over the league.
Or Aaron Hernandez with the meth addiction and then killing the guy after the nightclub fight kind of problems. Like, you don't have that
as a
with stoners.
Patriot fan, we don't speak of Aaron Hernandez anymore. It's like he doesn't exist. Bill Belichick, the Patriots organization, Robert Kraft, actually, they did a free exchange of Aaron Hernandez shirts because they're trying to wipe him out of existence, basically. That's a great point.
Yeah.
You're dealing
This
with
is a
addiction to meth.
classic case of two birds with one stone. Yeah. That you can have a very clear and honest message that the NFL really does need to get off their ass and change policy.
Yes.
And also have a much wider impact. What worked in Colorado, why marijuana is legal in Colorado now, is that people like Mason came up with a message that could connect to all the people who don't smoke pot and don't particularly care one way or the other about pot. Mm-hmm. And that's why Amendment 64, won by 55%. Got 55%. Like, that's why it got more than Obama, was because the conversation here has turned, and it's Mason Tvert, not just people like Mason, but I will say it is Mason Tvert more than anyone else who has helped, guide that conversation with stuff like this billboard, and it's brilliant. We need more of it. I hope he does it at every single football game.
I would love to see him do it at every football game. It's not going to, maybe in Colorado it won't be happening everywhere, but...
Well, this one cost him $5,000, so we can raise some donation. I don't know how long it's going to stay up, but...
Look, I think it was...
He buys that billboard a lot. He knows that sales rep.
He knows that one, yeah. I think it was a good usage of the money from Marijuana Policy Project, because that's the whole idea, is to push that policy, and it's going to help it. I doubt that whoever is covering the NFL game tonight, and I don't know who does cover the Thursday night games, I think maybe it's easy. I'm pretty sure they will not show this billboard on there. They'll probably make sure the cameras are avoiding it. But it doesn't matter because
the more that they avoid it, the more that all of the reporters today who picked up on a slow news cycle and said, hey, check out, this is a cool story, we should pay attention to it. Now, tomorrow they get to say, oh, and on air they didn't recognize this. They didn't say anything about it. And, this is the way marketing and politics work.
Yes.
And we can either, cringe our nose and say, oh, that's dirty. Or we can say, hey, why don't we use what works everywhere else for a good cause, like legalizing pot?
Yeah. It's like using the dark side for good.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I agree. What else were we talking about?
I don't know. This was our power segment.
That was our power segment. We only have 15 minutes. Well, we
clear
actually
and
10.
Unambiguous. We've got to circle back to
we got to go back to Cole memo.
Yes.
The clear. Okay. So you're of the...
Tee me up and we'll be quick.
Okay. So here's my tee up. You're and this is just from our quick conversation about this earlier. You're of, and just for those who don't know this by now. Sad, first of all, but the Cole memo. I'm calling it the new Cole memo. I'm sure other people are calling it Cole memo 2 or whatever. Last week's announcement,
yes.
And we did talk about it last Thursday because it happened that day. Was that basically, essentially, the Department of Justice came out and said that we are not going to mess with states that have a robust regulatory framework for marijuana. And they did not say, another thing that was really important, I would say in that memo, is they did not say for medical marijuana. They said for marijuana. So that covered recreational and medical as a good regulatory framework. And so a lot of people are very happy. And I think and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're of the thought process this is an amazingly good thing.
It is. This, I see, was an anonymous love letter from a geeky middle school kid to his crush that he didn't just write to the girl that he liked, but instead wrote anonymously and published in the middle school newspaper.
Interesting.
Right? The last week's memo, everywhere except Colorado, it means far less. Last week, more than anything else in that memo, was a tacit approval, as far as the Justice Department will go, through a memo and through a guidance document saying, if you have a rule that ticks off these 8 boxes, and in no way has anyone challenged that Colorado doesn't.
No, that's true.
And Washington is on a similar system that's just not in place yet. So when they get there, the providers that are there will be fine, but the ones today don't have a dispensary license like we do.
Right.
California, this seemed to be a smack across the face to say,
get your shit together.
So this is my original point, was in the 2009, the original Ogden memo, the first piece of 1-page, 2-page written documentation we got from the Obama administration. The phrase that I latched onto, and I think we all did, was it said those patients and providers that are in, quote, clear and unambiguous compliance will not be an enforcement priority. And clear and unambiguous compliance became the rallying call through the state legislature in 2009, 2010, that it was, that was our thesis or our mission statement. We need clear and unambiguous rules so that everyone who is going to be in this business can make a good-faced effort and say, we have followed every rule that you've given us, we are not the bad guys.
Right.
And in the intervening time, we've had relatively lax boots-on-the-ground enforcement, even though the rules are there.
Well, they
and if somebody breaks the rules, they get run up the flagpole, and it's clear.
And they even said with limited resources.
Right.
There's no way. Yeah, part of it really was just really, we can't do shit. And so we're going to say we're not going to do shit. But it's because they kind of can't. Because they don't have the resources to do this, and it would be a waste of resources.
And it would be flagrantly in the face of overwhelming public approval.
Yeah.
And growing, the political powers that be understand political statistics. And the growth rate of, public policy vis-a-vis marijuana or opinions is growing at such faster rate there is no recent precedent. The gay marriage movement took decades longer to slowly ramp up. And marijuana has been stagnant for so long until the last 5 or so years.
Yeah.
They knew it was inevitable.
Yeah.
So
I would agree with you on
Yeah,
that.
so in 2009 we wrote clear and unambiguous rules, and I think we got rewarded last week more than anybody because we've also gone further.
So do you think it was a clear and unambiguous memo?
I think it was because
Okay.
because what it does is this is not the end. This is, I put on my Facebook page. I sound silly just saying
No,
it
not
out
at all.
loud, but I said this is the first step in a very delicate ballet. That there are a lot of agencies under the broader executive branch that can make certain movements and can all do their own small policy memo that has the effect of telegraphing to the world bureaucratic change is coming.
Sure.
And that, is the sort of move that's made for other governments to say, okay, the federal government's made up their mind and Uruguay, we can do it. Canada can change their medical marijuana law and vastly open it up without fear that, the U.S. is going to retaliate. The way, again, until just in the last couple of years, all other countries on earth were worried the United States would somehow retaliate if they were to fully legalize. Amsterdam, it is not legal, it is decriminalized.
And in fact,
tolerated.
it's getting less tolerated there
Exactly.
too, which is I find fascinating. But going back to the letter, though, there was some wording in the letter that still drew up some flags for me. One of them being that they framed it out saying, and it was the same exact thing they said in the last Cole memo, Congress, and I think in the Ogden memo as well, Congress has determined that marijuana is an illegal and is a dangerous drug. And
that is on the Justice Department's way of signaling to Congress, it's still a Schedule 1, and it would really be easiest. Congress is not required to deschedule.
no, they're not.
The DEA, they're not going to do it.
No.
The FDA and the Attorney General all have independent fiat power under the executive branch to deschedule and under the Controlled
So
Substances
any one
Act
of them
to
could
make
do it.
lots of changes, right?
Right.
And to initiate bureaucratic procedures that once set in motion will have that result.
Can the Obama administration deschedule by themselves?
They could if they wanted to.
They could if they wanted.
They don't want to have to take the credit for doing that.
I don't understand why you wouldn't take the credit for actually utilizing a common sense approach. It
What
just
I've heard
cracks me up.
is what I've heard from people who I at least trust to have had secondhand conversations is that if you look statistically, the lowest demographic support for any kind of marijuana is always parents of school-age children, from 30 to 45 or 50 roughly. Obama seems to be more of a parent of juvenile children and as a prominent black leader who is worried that somehow the legalization of marijuana will decimate the black community.
It might be not a good
And
idea
those
for the
two-
first black president, I guess, to legalize marijuana.
I don't think he wants that. on his
I
resume.
think. I get it because
But I
I
think
get
he
how that
would-
could be made out to be.
Right. I think their administration in their calculations is, as someone who voted for him twice, I'll say that,
And
like,
I did too, but they're very calculated,
very calculated.
almost to a fault.
I think he is okay with allowing marijuana to be legalized on his watch and with trying to do the bureaucratic kind of back channel things that you do and the signals that you send through stuff like the memo to say it will be perfectly okay and I would like for everyone to do a little bit and then finally let Congress do a tiny bit tacked onto some 800-page bill that nobody reads and just make that we're cool with the final step so that Congress doesn't have to go on record as all right, we are all going to get together and vote now to legalize marijuana. That's not going to happen. And the FDA, the DEA, the president, none of them have to take direct responsibility, and none of them have figured out that there is political capital to be gained for being the first person in that federal position of leadership to really champion making change as a smart political decision.
Now, I have a question. Is this something that could be fixed in the judicial branch? Is it something where you could sue the government for calling it a Schedule 1? And say you're in prison for using it for medicine in a state that doesn't legalize it. Can you countersue and say, no, it is medicine because there is a patent that the federal government has put out on cannabis as a medicine. So they're already in contradiction of themselves.
Yes, and I'm not a lawyer.
No, I
but
know. I didn't
have
know if you
read
could
a
answer that
lot.
question. It's kind of one to pose out there.
The Supreme Court has taken all of the legal foundation for federal marijuana laws up. Basically, the position on that is, Congress is given certain rights under the Constitution and is granted a certain amount of leeway to act. And because Congress has acted to make it a Schedule 1, and because everything in the Controlled Substances Act has also not changed it, the judicial branch would show restraint and say it's not their position then to be the advocate judiciary that Fox News often paints them out to be.
Well, I mean, they do decide that corporations are people.
Now, the interesting thing that may have some precedent,
Right.
and I don't know on the memo if this one also said this can't be used in court. And the big thing about 2009 was the memo clearly said, we're going to tell you what we're going to do, but you can't quote us on this. You can't use it in court. It doesn't change shit. Like, if we're coming after you, we're coming after you. Right. If this one doesn't have that line, the real federal court, or the Supreme Court precedent is based on the Interstate Commerce Act, that Congress has the right to regulate commerce between the states. In the case where this was decided for marijuana, they quoted from the 1930s a wheat bill that during the Great Depression, the war, I forget which it was, there were quotas based on how much wheat anybody could produce. And the court said that extended all the way down to a person in their garden for their own consumption and their own family's use with no commercial intent, because in that case it would have, allowing that production outside of this federal restriction on how much wheat you could grow, would affect interstate commerce by actually decreasing demand. So it's not just that, and they applied it to marijuana and said, if California, because this is where the case came from, were to be allowed to have a medical marijuana system that were to work perfectly, it would have the effect of decreasing interstate narcotics trafficking, which would be a good thing from the federal government's current priorities.
Sure.
But from a legal point of view, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. As long as you're affecting interstate commerce, it's covered by the Constitution. And so in this case, it was Angel Rach, who was a terminally ill cancer patient growing for herself, never sold to anybody. Perfect test case. I mean, a very clean test case on the law. And it was clear. So, again, call the lawyers, ask them. But as I understand it, that precedent's set. There's also a number of pathways that this can happen. It just requires the various branches, both executive and legislative, to just greenlight it, to allow things to start moving and to start using, Obama has the power of appointments, right? He's not necessarily Eric Holder's boss. Congress doesn't necessarily say he gets a veto power to call him up in the middle of the night and say, I said no, right? But it's pretty clear that there's a degree of control that a president has over his appointments. It requires then the presidency saying, Health and Human Services, we want you to look at ways to deschedule this and to justify it. DEA, you still report to us. You're not an independent country.
Even though they think they are. Right?
Exactly, a division of justice. And guess what, cowboys? It's time to get in line. And your new priority is going to be finding the people who send it through the mail or who try to drive across the Kansas or Utah state line and take a little bit over with them. This doesn't legalize pot nationwide. It just changes what they can bust.
Well, I think it's going to be interesting.
And affects seizures.
Well, it's going to be hard, actually, to really – because I think you're going to have to look at – if they were to start taking control of policy on the DEA and telling them how they're going to do it, you're going to be looking at the DEA probably having to do incremental changes over time, because at first it'll be like, okay, keep it out of these states. And then it's like, oh, well, these states are now allowing it, so now it can transfer from state to state.
If the
it's going to be interesting. The DEA is going to be obsolete, hopefully.
Thankfully, it's an appointment. Michelle Lionheart, maybe not the best, but if she were to decide to retire, a head of the DEA could decide simply to accept any of the petitions that have been sitting for a long time and say, you know what, I've reviewed the evidence, and yes, you're right. Marijuana should be a Schedule II. Now, the downside is that would decimate all of the dispensary industry across the country. I mean, this would put it into pharmacies. It would then require a whole new battlefront to retain state control outside of everything else about the Controlled Substances Act. Just descheduling from 1 to 2.
Only on the medical side, though. Only on the medical side, because what about the recreational side here in Colorado? It wouldn't touch dispensaries that are recreational, would it?
Well, I mean, the Controlled Substances Act doesn't allow for any recreational psychotropic substances. That is, it is designed.
Well, the Controlled Substances Act was made during
medicine.
Nixon's era, and I think that needs to be obviously amended and it needs to be basically wiped away and recreated.
Well, and again,
in a more common sense manner.
Hopefully, the rest of the world understands this is also the United States telegraphing. It's time for a talk. And if there is push from another country or the rest of the world to go back to the UN and say, you know what, it's been since the early 60s, since we've had the last, single narcotics convention. How has the world changed in the last half century?
Yeah.
What do we need to be doing differently now to be fighting, the criminal elements that the world decides are a priority, and at the same time understanding that in the case of marijuana, times have changed and the people, no longer feel the way we did in the 60s, early 60s.
Yeah, exactly. Now, we actually have to end the show. I mean, we've already run over. It's great talking with you, by the way, Matt.
Come back sometime.
Oh, no, you're definitely going to have to come back sometime, man, because,
Awesome. This is great.
anytime.
My420tours.com. I will schlep the company a little bit more.
No, please do. That's what you're here for.
Yes.
My420tours.com.
855 My420 Tours.
There you go, 855 My420 Tours. That's a good one. That's good.
Not that it matters.
So next week we really are going to try to do a Jenny Cush tribute. We just want to make sure that we're doing it justice. So we'll make sure that we have some guests on that can speak about the life of Jenny Cush. And in honor of Jenny Cush, I am not going to sign out like I normally do with a peace, love, and happiness. Instead, I'm going to just say, fuck yeah.